In this video, I'm going to show you how to build this 4-seat bar table, or a pub table, perfect for any outdoor patio or bar area. Made out of 2x6s and a couple 1x4s, and as always I have the build plans linked below in the description. I found the best way to build these tables is to do it upside down. So we're going to start with the table top. We're going to have 5 2x6 pieces at 28 inches, and we're going to attach a 1x4 frame around it to hold them together. Your 1x4s are going to be 2 pieces at 28 inches and 2 pieces at 21 inches. I'm just using 1.5 inch deck screws here to hold everything in place. I'm being careful not to put the screws in the corners because we're going to trim those off for a more decorative look. And if you're going to put this outside, I'd recommend using pressure treated wood. This table is going to spend most of its life indoors, so I wasn't too worried about that. And I get a lot of people asking me if it's tippy, if it's going to tip over one person on it, if you lean back, is it going to tip over? Keep in mind this is made out of 12 2x6s, so it's going to be pretty hefty when it's all said and done, especially if you're using pressure treated lumber. It's a 2-person move at least. So yes, one person can sit on it without it tipping over. So once we get the tabletop finished, I take it over to the miter saw and just trim off a couple inches, 45 degrees on each side, on each corner, gives it that decorative look and takes away some of the sharp edges so people don't get hurt on your table. You could also do this with a jigsaw or a skill saw. It was just easier for me to do it on the miter saw. These pieces are going to be the support for the legs, and they're going to attach right to the tabletop, the bottom of the tabletop. These are 2 pieces at 21 inches, and we're going to have 4 pieces at 8 inches. And I'm going to cut 15-degree angles right on the ends of them. I'm going to find the center and place a spacer board right on the center line. And I put the 2 21-inch pieces on each side of the spacer with the point of the angle facing down towards the table. And I just use pocket holes to put those in place. About 4 on each one. You could screw these in from the top, but for a cleaner look I decided to go with the pocket holes. I didn't want screw holes in the top of my table. Then for the 4 8-inch pieces, I did the 15-degree angles again, found the center, then I put a spacer on the center line, and put the 2 8-inch pieces on each side of the spacer, and used pocket holes to hold those in place. The space where the spacer goes is going to be where the legs will attach later on in this build. And this project can look challenging, but it's pretty simple. Just a lot of pieces. And they came out looking really nice. Time for the legs. These are 40.5 inches. 4 of them, 15-degree angles, parallel angles on each leg. They're going to fit them into those slots. You're going to want the long point of the angle facing inwards on the tabletop. And then the back of the angle is going to be flush up against that 1x4 piece. I'm using 2.5-inch deck screws to hold these all in place. This is another project that you can use carriage bolts. Those would work just fine too. But the deck screws hold. I've made a few of these now and they don't fall apart. You just want to make sure the long point of the angle is facing inward towards the tabletop. If you don't, your legs will be out of whack. And your table won't sit flat. Now for the long runners that the seats will attach to, this is 60.5 inches. And I cut a little notch off the end for the decorative look. I'm spacing it, it's going to be about 13 3/4 inch from each leg there. And I have that spacer, 2x6 spacer underneath it. That's all the height you need. It actually works out pretty well. I'm using 2.5-inch deck screws to hold that in place. And then once that one's on, we'll flip it around and do the exact same thing on the other side. 2x6 spacer. Make sure it's 13 3/4 from that leg. And then you'll just use the 2.5-inch deck screws to hold that in place. And when installing these, you just want to make sure your angle's facing up, which when you flip it over, it'll be facing down. So your seats will mount to the flat part of the 2x6 there. Then for the short runners, for the other seats, I'm just pocket holing one side of these boards. These are 28.5 inches long. And I'm going to take it over to the miter saw on the side that I didn't pocket hole. I'm just going to measure 2 inches up and cut a 45-degree angle on that mark. And that's what I did for the long runners also. So we're going to do that to all 4 of these pieces. And then once they're all cut and trimmed up, we can take them out. And then just use that spacer again. And the 2 pocket holes. And then 2.5-inch screws right into that leg. At 28.5 inches, it'll give you that 13 3/4 inch clearance, so it'll match the long runners. So all your seats will be symmetrical. Sorry, talking is hard. Same thing on the other side, spacer, pocket holes, 2.5-inch deck screws. You see where I'm going with this, so then once that one's in place, we'll just turn it around and do the other side the exact same way with the final 2 boards. And as you can see, this thing's already getting heavy. And once these final boards are in place, we'll be able to flip it over to see what it looks like. And sometimes I've had it before where I haven't had one of the legs sitting flat or flush to the bottom of the tabletop, and I've had to go back and readjust it. That'd be the time to do it, because you'll just have a few screws to take out instead of waiting until it's finished and taking the whole thing apart, basically. But in this case, it turned out nice. It sits flat, doesn't wobble. And next, we're going to install the footrest supports. There's going to be 8 of these pieces. They're 10.5 inches tall with a 15-degree angle on each side. Parallel angles to match the legs. And we're just going to screw those right to the bottom of the leg. 2 on each side. And this will be where the footrest goes on top of. You could add the seats at this time, but I always wait, so I'm not hitting my head on them when I'm putting these pieces on. Trust me, it happens. And now for the footrest. These are 25-inch pieces with 45-degree angles. They fit nicely on those footrests. Then I'm just marking the lines where it overhangs with a pencil. Then I'm going to come back with my jigsaw and trim them off so we don't have that overhang. So they fit nice and flush on those footrest support pieces. So you're going to have 4 of them. 4 of them at 25.5 inches with 45-degree angles on each end. And I just use my jigsaw to trim them off. You could do this with a miter saw. I had my jigsaw handy, so I'm just going to use that. It's just a little bit that you're taking off, so it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have to be perfect. But then we just use a couple screws to screw those in place all the way around. Once those are in place, I came back, and this is a dark brown deck stain, Cordovan brown, but in person it looks more purple. I was going for a dark brown, but I guess that works. And then for the top, I used new cedar. It looks okay, but I was going for a darker brown. Now for the seats, you're going to have 8 of these pieces at 18 inches long. And then I just cut the corners on them, trimmed them 45 degrees on each corner. Then just using 2.5-inch deck screws here to hold them all in place. Screwing them right to those runner pieces. 4 in each board. And just like that, we have our pub style table. If you want to challenge yourself to something different, be sure to check out the build plans down in the description.